After work on a new budget, the City Council recently explored some new ground in civic engagement for Boston's immigrants. To bring us up to date is the Council's President and District Councilor for parts of Mattapan and Dorchester. We'd like to welcome Andrea Campbell. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Councilor, I want to ask you about the big news today, the new police commissioner stepping into Boston. This is historic, but is there really that much change?
I think we got to give him a little bit of time, but
William
no.
Gross, of course, yeah, right.
I applaud the mayor's decision, and I congratulated Commissioner Gross. I think it's fantastic. I think we're moving in the right direction when it comes to diversity. I am a big proponent that we need to make sure that all of our departments are diverse, not just at low tier levels, but at the top tier levels, not just with people of color, but also women. So I know he cares about this, and we're going to tackle that issue together, and I look forward to working in partnership with him.
Well, we've had all this trailblazing recently by women on the council. You're the first woman of color to be a council president. Well, maybe not color, but for African American.
First black woman.
Yes.
That's right.
I guess the thing is, when you get someone who's a police commissioner, what that says to the kids growing up in the city about their possibilities, what do you think?
It says a lot. I mean, I think even in the role that I am currently in, I'm all about the work. I focus on the work and not necessarily the symbolism, but it means something. When I meet young girls who grow up, who are growing up in the city of Boston, like I grew up in the city of Boston, they share how it means something to them. And so we have to celebrate that. And people, when they see themselves reflected in a role, they're more likely to know that that's realistic and possible for them. So I think it's a big deal for the city of Boston. And I told the mayor that it was, I think, a good choice. I look forward to working with him like I did with Commissioner Evans. I had a great working relationship with Commissioner Evans, so I thanked him as well for his service and dedication to the city. And I wish him well at Boston College.
Another way of connecting people to the city is through the engagement of immigrants, who I think are more than a quarter of the population, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
What are you pursuing with this?
So, one, it was a conversation, and what I learned actually is sometimes it's difficult to have some conversations about, I guess, some difficult topics. And for me, I didn't know that immigration was going to be so difficult. And the conversation was in the face of what's happening in Washington, D.C., namely how the policies are changing so abruptly for folks to become citizens, how those who are in the military, for example, who signed up to serve this country in a very meaningful way to become a citizen, but also to give to this country, are suddenly being abruptly discharged. And so the question for me was, what can we do at the local level to support these residents and to support these communities? I said, I'm done sending resolutions to President Trump. He's not reading them. So let's have a conversation. And the conversation included voting for folks who are either currently legal permanent residents or those who are here legally on a pathway to become citizens or in some way looking to become a citizen of this country. And I said, let's have the conversation around voting because other municipalities in this country are doing it. And so I said, why not have that conversation in the city of Boston, given the size of the population here that identifies as immigrants, those who are becoming citizens, those numbers, and also what they contribute to this community in this city. They work here, they go to school here, some of them are city employees, they pay taxes, their contributions are great. So how do we recognize that without simply saying, we stand with you? What does it mean to stand with these folks? And I think the conversation is a conversation that was worth having, and I look forward to continuing it.
In the positive end of this, how would you see that, let's say, the exercise of voting rights as a way to not only help those immigrants who live in the city, but maybe their whole neighborhoods?
That's exactly right. So when you look at certain pockets of the city of Boston, folks who come from other countries are here. In my district, largely Dorchester, Mattapan, I have a little bit of Jamaica Plain and Rosendale. We have a sizable immigrant population. Folks who are Vietnamese, Portuguese, Cape Verdean, Haitian, the list is long. And they've been living here, not for some just years, decades, and contributing not just at the civic association level, of course, helping candidates get elected, paying taxes. They buy homes here, they purchase property, they pay business taxes, they run businesses. So the hearing was about how can we support these populations of folks, maybe through entrepreneurial supports, intentionality around connecting those who we identify as newcomers with longtime residents. How else might we create access to government? And voting was one piece. And when you are allowed to participate in that way, we all know how meaningful it is. So we had folks come and testify what it means to them and what it would mean to them to be able to vote in a local election. We're not talking about state and federal, only local elections where they live and work, where they show up. And for some folks, they equated it to taxation without representation. Others, it was just about, I live here, I am a citizen, and my spouse is a legal permanent resident. And this was a gentleman from Dorchester that shared the story. And he says, she's permanent, keyword being permanent. So how can she be able to show up in this conversation? And it has to be more intentional in terms of access to power, not just simply I'm helping a candidate or going to a civic association. They might elect a different representative and have a different voice be reflected on the council. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
This is BNN News, and we're talking with City Council President Andrea Campbell. I want to ask you about another change of leadership in the city, in the Boston public schools. This took some of us by surprise. Where do you see this taking the school system?
Well, I hope it continues the work and it moves the agenda forward on a lot of pressing issues. We have to do a lot when it comes to build BPS, people wanting to know what that plan is going to ultimately mean for our schools. We have a lot to do in terms of reconfiguration. We're talking about it. What does that actually mean? Equity, the report that just came out that talked about the school assignment process and the breakdown for certain zip codes, including 02126, Mattapan, where I live. So there's a lot of work to be done, and I don't want it to be put on hold as we look for a permanent superintendent. I will tell you, I've worked with Laura in the past.
Laura Perrell, the interim superintendent.
That's right,
Yep.
Before she became the interim, and she did some really incredible work with schools in my district, including the Burke High School and the Mildred in Mattapan. I met with her today. She's hit the ground running. And one thing I really admire and respect about her is she's not afraid to say, we got something wrong. We made a mistake. We rolled something out in a wrong way. We didn't get community input, or we didn't get enough community input. We can do better. And that, I think, goes a long way in rebuilding trust with constituents, and I appreciate that.
One thing I remembered from when they were debating the new assignment policy 6 years ago was that most of the least chosen schools were in the areas of the city where most of the students lived.
That's right.
That's a pretty fundamental problem, isn't it?
We have a lot of work to do, and I will tell you, whether it is the quality of schools in certain districts that just need to change. We're either losing families because they're moving, because the selection they're presented with isn't appropriate for their child, or we have families that are just stuck. And they're stuck with a choice that they don't want to live with, but they have to because they have no other option. And so I am advocating every single day at the council to say we have to do better. And for me, it's not a resource issue. I think we have loads of resources. The question is, how do we make sure that those resources are being spent equitably, and that the programs that are working, we're investing in those, and those that are not, we're doing away with and trying something else. And this is going to require us to take some leaps of faith and, frankly, some risk to try new ideas. And I think there are some ideas that are coming from the district. There are some that can come from community or other places. And so we need to be able to think about testing some of those out.
What would you learn from what happened with one school in your district that's had some problems in its history, the Mattapan School? Because this is a school that the city preemptively shut down because they thought the state was going to take it over. Lots of turnover among the teachers and administrators, an influx of immigrants from Haiti right after the earthquake. What do you see can be learned about how do you handle those things?
I think there's a lot can be learned, and I learned a lot. I took a position on that school in the beginning saying I think what the administration was attempting to do, realign it so that it wouldn't be taken over from the state, was a good thing. Then I went out into the community and I listened to the residents who said, we don't want that, we want something different. And I changed my position because I said, while it may not be rational to me what they're saying they want, it is to them, and that means something. These were students and families that had gone through turnover themselves. This was hopefully the last school they would have to go to before going to high school. And that suddenly was going to change. These were students and parents who didn't know what a level 4 school even meant, and it had been a level 4 school for years. And so I said, we have to do a better job of engaging our families in a proactive way before it's sort of a school is under threat, explaining to them what the state of affairs is of the school, highlighting the positive as well, and then having a plan that is created not just by us, but also by families and their input to do something. And I think for me, it's making sure we get community input at the outset, and then through the process, creating something that we all agree upon. And I think parents and families are ready for something like that, and I'm excited to be a part of those processes. But I learned a great deal, and that is that community has to be at the table from the beginning.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
City Council President Andrea Campbell.